The Mandalorian Season 2 finale. Find out why. It was beyond amazing. The review right here, along with some Easter eggs. Right here on All Comics Access. Hey, welcome to All Comics Access. It is your host, Joe the Beast McCoy, aka The Mixed Marvel. And what can I say about this episode? Quite possibly the best thing I've seen on television in years. I couldn't have asked for a better ending. Talk about full of surprises and things. I'm so excited about this episode, like I'm tempted to skip way ahead and just talk about the ending, but you know, I'm not going to do that to you because I'm like, I have to give you all the goodness that was in this episode. There was so much, and whew, it's hard to put into words, but let's just get right into proceedings. And as always, before I get into things, please make sure to like this video to help it out and subscribe to the channel, because you know I'm going to keep bringing you all that geeky goodness and so much more. Alright, so let's get rolling. First and foremost, this wonderful episode was directed by none other than Peyton Reed. If you're wondering why that name might sound a bit familiar for all my fellow Marvel fans, he is the gentleman that directed both the Ant-Man movies. Also, he directed the second episode of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, the Frog Lady episode, and so he was back for this one, and he did not disappoint with these excellent directing skills. So the episode opens up pretty intense. You know, we got the Slave One chasing down one of the Empire ships, and who shows up in that particular ship? None other than the clone engineer himself, Dr. Pershing. Now, what was pretty interesting, you know, was what they used to stop the ship. We've definitely seen this in times past, ion cannon. In particular in The Empire Strikes Back, when the rebels were firing at the Empire from planet Hoth to buy them some time and make their maneuvers through the galaxy. Now, once a ship was stopped, it got pretty intense. And you know, that's always a good sign right from the beginning when you're on the edge of your seat. So we see a little bit of a standoff between the two Empire pilots. And you know, one of them has no loyalty whatsoever. And, you know, is willing to betray the Empire for the sake of saving his own hide. But we see that the other guy wasn't caring too much to hear that. He takes Dr. Pershing up kind of hostage-like. And what was interesting, there was a bit of a moment that got intense between him and Cara Dune. We learned that there was a great significance to that Rebel Alliance teardrop tattoo that was on her cheek. It actually was something that was meant to commemorate her home planet of Alderaan, a planet we're all too familiar with in the Star Wars universe that unfortunately got destroyed by the Death Star. So what was interesting, you know, as Cara Dune and the pilot are having a bit of a back and forth as he's holding the doctor, or the clone engineer you could say, up for hostage, threatening to put him out of his misery, so to speak. It was interesting, the perspective of the Empire as far as the Rebel Alliance in times past, and even the New Galactic Alliance right now, that, you know, they view them as a form of terrorism, and they felt like, I guess they were doing the galaxy a service by always battling them and attempting to take them out. And I found that pretty fascinating throughout the season. We got to see a little bit of the deeper thoughts and philosophies of the Empire, especially from the previous episode that we just saw with Miggs Mayfeld. So I thought that was pretty interesting, you know, at least his perspective. But man, it was pretty cool when Cara Dune took him out with that quick shot and saved the clone engineer's hide. What was pretty cool too, we still know that you know, Boba Fett's rocking that fresh new armor, and as usual we see that awesome you know, Journeyman's Protector Sigil right there on the front chest. I discussed that briefly in my last video on the significance of that, but in case you missed it, that particular sigil was meant to honor, you know, his grandfather, Jasper Morrell, which was pretty awesome. So we see the Slave One go to a particular planet, and it parks next to the Gauntlet. If you're wondering what the Gauntlet is, that particular ship, it is none other than Bo-Katan's, and we have seen this in time past in the Attack of the Clones series when she first encountered Ahsoka Tano. Now, this was a pretty intense moment, you know, when you had Din Djarin, Boba Fett, meeting up with Koska Reeves, Bo-Katan. And I mean, whoo, that was just unbelievable. And you know, while we know Bo-Katan has a bit of respect for Din Djarin, we saw very quickly she had zero respect for Boba Fett. And you know, it was interesting some of the things she said to kind of throw some insults his way. You know, in particular, hey, I've heard your voice 1,000 times. You know, reminding him like, hey, you're just a clone. And what was even more interesting, how basically she called him out for not being a Mandalorian. But we do know by Mandalorian, you know, birthrights and heritage and so forth, that that armor is rightfully his. And his father, Jango Fett, was a foundling. And then the little bit of a battle between him and Koska Reeves was pretty dope. We saw Koska Reeves, aka Miss Sasha Banks, put those sweet wrestling moves to play, which was pretty awesome. And then it was pretty funny, the standoff with the flamethrowers, so I was kind of digging that. Din Djarin, you know, in order to draw her in, put her on to, hey, we have opportunity to get Moff Gideon, he has my kid, and you know, essentially we know she's on a mission to retrieve the Darksaber so she can rule Mandalore once again and bring order to her home world. So she definitely joined up with him, and you know, Koska Reeves as well. And what was interesting, when they're on the ship and basically getting information out of the clone engineer, he puts them up on what they're going to be up against. We learned from Dr. Pershing that, you know, the Dark Troopers are third phase form. So essentially the main weakness that was removed to them so they could be top of the line was they no longer needed human counterparts within them. And we remember the Dark Troopers in particular from back in the day, the game Dark Forces, and it was pretty awesome to see them in action a couple episodes ago. And we definitely know how lethal they are because, I mean, these things are top tier, so it's, you know, he was basically forewarning them that these things are no joke. So as they're in pursuit, they, you know, Bo-Katan makes a very interesting point that, hey, she says, Moff Gideon is mine. And it basically reminds us that, you know, by Mandalorian right, that if she battles Moff Gideon, takes him on, she can rightfully take that saber back by the traditions. So it makes sense that she wants to take him one-on-one. But, you know, we see a very interesting outcome later in the episode. So right from the jump, you know, it was pretty crazy the game plan they had to get onto the ship. I loved how they basically went into that open hangar area against, you know, the will of Moff Gideon, and you know, because they had jacked the Empire ship, so they were on the assumption that, hey, you know, these guys are one of us, but they're not listening to protocol. And that's pretty slick, the whole decoy setup that, you know, the Slave One did by Boba Fett's hands. And I thought it was pretty interesting how all of a sudden, like, he broke off as they carried out their mission. So it's pretty cool to see the ladies coming in representing hard. Now we see that, you know, Koska Reeves and, you know, Bo-Katan are decked out in their awesome special Night Owls Mandalorian armors. So it was pretty cool. If you're wondering about the Night Owls, they were an elite female group of women from Mandalore in times past that basically would handle business. And also, you know, we saw the awesome Fennec Shand, you know, for excellent sharpshooting skills. And, you know, of course, Cara Dune always handles business as well. So I thought that was pretty cool how they went in as a nice unit, kind of clearing the pathway. And then we see that Din Djarin slyly, you know, goes in there. Now it's pretty interesting, you know, we saw the RS-7 droid, the same one that we had seen in times past in the New Hope movie, which was pretty cool. Really interesting was, you know, his encounter with the Dark Trooper. And I mean, whew, talk about taking a beating. You know, as much he tried to do that prevention, I mean, man, the thing pulverized him. And I mean, that proves the strength of that Beskar. And, you know, it was interesting that, you know, much he took a beating to the head like that, I guess because the helmet's somewhat pressurized, that allowed for him to, you know, basically survive, you know, that kind of beating without taking damage fully to his skull. Pretty wild, though. I thought it was a pretty slick maneuver, though, how he, you know, clicked that button and had the rest of the troopers, you know, the Dark Troopers out there in the galaxy. So that was pretty awesome to see that move. And then, you know, it was pretty interesting when he finally confronted Moff Gideon. I mean, Moff Gideon has the Darksaber ready to cut the kid, take him down, you know, and there was some quick pro between the two individuals, Din Djarin and Moff Gideon. And basically, you know, you don't trust Moff Gideon, but, you know, he tries his luck anyway and tries to talk Din Djarin into, hey, I've gotten all I need out of this child. Now, what was interesting, you know, he very explicitly said how he wanted him for his blood, and that how he had special properties within his blood that could help bring order to the galaxy. And I have a very big feeling, you know, based on what we saw a couple episodes ago, you know, we saw those clones in the tanks, that, you know, this ties in the line with something as far as the Emperor, or, you know, even Snoke that we have seen in the most recent movies. Now, what was pretty fascinating as well, you know, just when you thought it was safe, he's like, oh, take the child. We see that Moff Gideon tries stabbing him in the back, so to speak, and, you know, the battle's on. And, man, it was pretty awesome to see, you know, Din Djarin wielding that crazy Beskar spear and handling business. Now, it was, and then, you know, when he finally took him down, ah, that was such a good feel. And the wild part was, like, you know, you're thinking, all right, this is a triumphant moment. You know, he takes down Moff Gideon. He has Grogu back, so he goes meet up with the crew. And the look on Bo-Katan's face was not too pleasing. Din Djarin fulfilled, you know, his mission, his duty. You know, he got Grogu back. You know, he willingly gave the Darksaber to Bo-Katan. But interestingly enough, she did not take it. And it's kind of like what Moff Gideon said earlier. It's the mythology, it's the philosophy behind the Darksaber. Even though, you know, even though it is an awesome weapon, it itself is the significance and the legacy of it on Mandalore is really what gives it its power. You know, Sabine Wren, you know, she gave the saber to Bo-Katan, so it's pretty strange to see Din Djarin, you know, he willingly gives it to her and she won't accept it. Sabine Wren definitely had stole the saber from Darth Maul in times past, because it was strange. Darth Maul technically had earned that saber because he did fight for it and rightfully took it, you know, according to Mandalorian tradition. But because he was an outsider, obviously they didn't have the same respect for him. But it was just interesting to note that, you know, she wouldn't take it from Din Djarin. So I have a feeling, you know, come season 3, there might be some battling going on. And what was crazy, everything took a different kind of turn when all those Dark Troopers flew back into the ship. And, you know, things were getting hectic. Moff Gideon thought he had the upper hand. And it was pretty slick how he had the blaster hid under his cape and everything. But what happened next, I wasn't prepared for. And to be honest, I don't think you were prepared for it either. When I saw that X-Wing land on the ship, I lost it. Because I was like, whoa, I know who that is. My guy, you know, Luke Skywalker. And definitely what confirmed it was when he, you know, even before you saw his face, when I saw that black glove and the saber, you know, reminded me, boom, Return of the Jedi. You know, that classic cloak outfit, you know, that we remember from the opening of that particular movie, you know, when he entered Jabba's palace. And what was pretty cool, what I always appreciate about George Lucas's philosophy was, like, you know, his attention to details for the colors. Because, you know, we had New Hope, you know, Luke was wearing white, you know, kind of significance of the purity. Then, you know, Empire Strikes Back, you know, got a little gritty. He's rocking like a grayish outfit. And then, you know, last but not least, Return of the Jedi, which is my personal favorite. You know, how he's wearing a black, showing his struggle as far as getting to the dark side. And man, when he was taking down those droids, it was nuts. You know, as they're watching Luke make his way through the ship, Moff Gideon's face was priceless, because he was like, oh, I think I knew who that is. And I thought it was pretty funny before they Moff Gideon tried to do some slick stuff, and man, they were like, nope, not today. He got dismissed. But anyway, you know, it was pretty interesting, you know. But, you know, when Luke headed down that hallway, it was very reminiscent of, you know, his father. You know, in the Rogue One movie, when Darth Vader was delivering punishment to the rebels, it was insane. And I mean, he was just swiping them left and right. And then last but not least, what I thought was pretty wild was, you know, he hit that Dark Trooper with that Force Crush. And this is what's interesting about the Force Crush. I definitely know for a fact that, you know, that particular move was something that was, how should I put it, you know, forbidden by the original Jedi Order, because that's considered, you know, a dark side move. So it's pretty interesting seeing Luke do that. But, you know, like we know that when Luke continued on his own journey after Return of the Jedi, you know, if you read the books or anything else, that, you know, basically Luke found his own path. And according to the original Jedi teachings, they actually embrace certain things like anger and other factions that the Jedi Order of, you know, I'll just say the Phantom Menace era and all those times, you know, essentially had rejected, which was to another extreme, which blinded him to certain things. So we did learn that over time Luke did embrace certain traits of the dark side in order to have a perfect balance to the Force, you know, for himself and to put into use. And I just love, like, you know, when he entered the room, you know, he removes the cloak like all the cool Jedis do. You know, we remember throughout various movies. And, you know, revealed that he was there for the child. I mean, it's pretty wild. The child had such a connection, you know, father-son bond with Din Djarin that, you know, basically Luke had to tell him that, hey, you know, the child will come with me only if he has your permission. And it was very phenomenal to see that Luke was saying, hey, I'm willing to give my life for this kid. I'll do what it takes to raise him right, to train him, which I thought was pretty awesome. And, you know, it was a very touching moment when you saw, how should I put this? You know, Din Djarin take off his helmet, reveal who he was to the child fully. There was only one other time in season 1, you know, when Din Djarin was in private that, you know, he had seen the child from a distance with his own eyes, but to have that up-close personal look was definitely a first. You know, it was pretty cool to actually see that moment, and we saw a special connection between Grogu and Din Djarin, and it's kind of tough to see that, you know. I think we all got a little teared up. But what was pretty funny was when R2-D2 came out of nowhere. And it's pretty interesting about R2-D2. I mean, this guy's been around forever. And, you know, he is definitely a droid that has never had his memory wiped clean. So he remembers everybody, especially from the temple. And we see that little bit of an interaction between R2-D2 and Grogu. Like, hey, I know you. And he's like, hey, I know you. And, you know, I thought that was pretty funny. And so I couldn't have picked a better ending. And it was just like, wow. Alright, so that's really it. You know, the quest with the child, it's kind of over. But, you know, season 3, I can't even grasp how phenomenal that's going to be. And, you know, if you're like me also, those ending credits, oh man, so phenomenal with Boba Fett. So let's, you know, I got to get into that. I got pretty excited when I waited through these credits and I saw that, you know, they're headed to, you know, some reason it showed up at Tatooine. We see Jabba's palace, which is like, wow, okay, I know something's about to go down. And we see some familiar faces, and I got a kick out of who was sitting in the throne. None other than Bib Fortuna. And we remember him as Jabba the Hutt's right-hand man from Return of the Jedi. he looks like he not only took over Jabba the Hutt's position, but apparently his weight as well. I guess all that rulership, you know, has its pluses and minuses. But it was pretty satisfying to see, you know, my man Boba Fett show up there, and, you know, with Fennec, and he was handling business, and it was just like, wow, poetic in a way. It was just like, man, this guy's getting his revenge in a sense. And, you know, he basically was not trying to hear Bib Fortuna's negotiation skills, took him out quickly. Well, I found pretty interesting, you know, right before he sits down on the throne, they had Jedi runes on it. So I am very curious, you know, if, you know, in the future they're going to explore where Jabba the Hutt, you know, could have gotten that throne, or Bib Fortuna, I should say. So that's pretty cool. And I don't know, I tend to wonder, you know, whenever they start this book of Boba Fett, if if he's going to be battling what's left over the Hutts. But essentially, I think it's pretty cool that, you know, Boba Fett's back on top. Essentially, he's taken over this syndicate, and man, I'm excited for whatever the future's going to hold. So, yeah, just let me know what your thoughts are, what your theories are on this book of Boba Fett. I am ecstatic about that, and, you know, I'm really excited to see what Fennec Shand's going to be doing along with him. I mean, it was just such a cool scene. Great way to end it all. Alright, folks, so, you know, thanks for hanging out with me today. You know, that's just kind of my feedback on this phenomenal episode. It's just, man, I can only say but so much, because, I mean, the episode just it just did so much for me as a die-hard Star Wars fan. And even though The Mandalorian's over, I'm going to still be bringing you some awesome geeked out episodes from week to week. Always bringing you some surprises, so definitely stay tuned to that. And definitely within this coming week, I will be releasing a coming video on the details of my giveaway that's going to be going on. So definitely stay tuned. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you definitely know when I'm rocking out with that awesome giveaway. You don't want to miss out. It's definitely going to be a surprise. Alright, folks, and, you know, before we head on out of here, I just want to tell you, even though, you know, times are hard out here, things getting a little wild, keep your head up. Don't lose your love for everything geeky. Stay awesome. You do matter. And most of all, whenever you're feeling down and out, rise up and geek on.